Hello, everyone, and welcome to our live Q&A, Microsoft Dynamics 365 for local councils. My name is Gareth Boyle, Senior Marketing Executive for Microsoft here at Fusion 5, and I'm joined today by Manningham City Council Manager for Citizen Connect, Sasha Lord, Manningham City Council Project Manager, Priyanka Morjaria, Fusion 5 Solution Specialist, Brad Orders, Fusion 5 General Manager for CE, Paul Griffin, and Microsoft Solutions Specialist for Local Government, James Mather. Before I hand over to James, just a couple of quick bits of housekeeping. We will have our presentation first, followed by a Q&A session with the team I've just introduced. Some of you may have submitted your questions while you registered, but if you do have any questions during the presentation that come up as we go, please feel free to ask via the live chat function in the top right-hand side of your browser Teams application. We'll also be sharing a copy of today's recording with our attendees and those who couldn't make it after the session today. So without further ado, let's kick off with our first presenter, James Mather from Microsoft. James.
Great. Thanks, Gareth. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to join us today for our latest edition of Local Government Webinars. So my name's James Mather. I'm a solution specialist here at Microsoft aligned to local government. I support around 140 local councils across Australia and New Zealand. And my remit is across Microsoft's business applications. So it covers the full Dynamics platform, both front and back office, as well as our low to no code Power Platform. So this webinar has been some time in the making, one I've been really looking forward to, and we're really lucky to have the awesome Manningham team here today sharing their story around their award-winning CRM, which was used on Dynamics 365. So before we get into the content and hear from Manningham, I thought I would share a couple of slides that will hopefully set the scene from a technology perspective, really before we get into that Q&A. So next slide, please, Gareth. I thought I'd start by providing our leader, Satya Nadella's stance and future direction on our business applications. In the Dynamics 365 and Power Platform, on top of what we're already doing with Azure, is really core to what we're doing as a company. Next slide, please, Brad. So for the past few years, I guess that Microsoft has been developing and rolling out pieces of what it now calls its Power Platform in relative isolation. So think about Power BI from an analytics perspective, Power Apps for low-code application development. We've got Power Automate, or this used to be called Flow, for workflow automation, alongside those Power Virtual Agents and chatbots. So this is together known as our Power Platform. This has mostly been in the domain of Dynamics 365 recently. Now, this isolation or silo has now radically changed, and Microsoft is planning a big push to make that Power Platform its unified extensibility model and framework, not just across Dynamics, CRM and ERP, but across the whole Microsoft platform, including Office, Teams, SharePoint, Azure, and the broader Microsoft platform. Thanks, Brad. Next slide. So the model and strategy is really driven by a fundamental change occurring, and that change is that data is now coming first. So for LGAs, think about a sensor placed on a council asset or piece of equipment. You know, it could be, for example, a traffic light signal, community waste bin, parking meter, it could be a waste truck. So think about how it's sending a continuous stream of information about how it's being used, about its health. So when that data lands in the cloud, by using things like AI or machine learning, it can then predict when it's going to break or needs maintenance, so that you can then proactively schedule a field service officer on site to keep that asset running. So just a great example of how you can put data first and using some of that AI capability for proactive maintenance. Now, the final piece of Microsoft's next generation business applications is around collaborative applications, and that your CRM or request management or line of business application, it shouldn't create another integration headache or data silo, but it really should augment some of those existing investments that you've made in productivity and collaboration tools. So think about how you can surface relevant, valuable business data from your CRM into the familiar place of working for your employees, such as within Teams, Outlook. It might be within Windows or within the Dynamics app or mobile device. Next slide, please, Brad. So I guess these last two slides before we hand over to the Manningham team, this slide really provides a high-level overview of the workloads that councils can now manage using Dynamics and Power Platform. I guess the evaluation of core systems is really a hot topic for many councils, driven by a number of reasons that we're seeing. So the first is, some of the news around existing incumbent vendors have notified of end of life for some of their on-premise offerings, as well as we've really seen this push to transform current operating models and that desire to provide more customer-centric service delivery, which is often hard to achieve when you have disparate data sets and data silos. Next slide, please, Brad. One more slide from me. So when we zoom out slightly, we'll provide that high-level overview of the broader Microsoft platform that can help LGAs with their digital transformation. And Dynamics and Power Platform, which the tools that you'll see today and hear about today is built on, is only one piece of the broader picture. In terms of Microsoft's holistic unified business platform across both applications, productivity, infrastructure, analytics, and integration. So I thought that would just hopefully set the scene from a technology perspective. That's enough for me. I'll hand over to Sasha and the Manningham team. Sasha, over to you.
Thanks very much, James. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for taking time out of your day and joining yet another online event. My name's Sasha Lord and I'm the Manager of Citizen Connect at Manningham Council. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that I'm speaking to you today from the lands of the Kulin Nation, and I want to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging and celebrate the diversity of the First Nations people and their ongoing cultures and connections to the lands and the waterways of Victoria. So Gareth, if you could just move over to the first slide, which is why CRM, if I did my prep right, fantastic. So Manningham's journey of embarking on a new CRM started back in 2017, and for all the reasons that you might have yourselves and would expect. We couldn't track our customers' experience and therefore we couldn't improve it significantly. Our customer service was coming up short. Assuming the majority of you here today are from the public sector, where we all have the luxury and the burden of customers that are not going anywhere and haven't elected us as the provider of their services. Improving customer service is not about maintaining or growing your customer base, but about building trust in your community, delivering public value and fostering an organisation that's accountable to its customers. Our customer data was held in multiple systems and really hard to locate. I think we all know about the Excel spreadsheets that we're fond of in local government, which limited our visibility into customer interactions, as well as our ability to make informed decisions quickly. And we needed to be ready to scale. Our customers' expectations are changing. They're not backwards and coming forwards and sharing that with us. And what they're experiencing in their consumer lives is the same as what they now expect from us in the public sector. So we knew that we needed to set ourselves up to meet and maintain their growing expectations. So now I'm going to hand over to Project Manager Extraordinaire Priyanka to tell you a little bit more about the how.
Thanks, Sasha. Morning all, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Priyanka and I'm Manningham's CRM Project Manager. I immigrated from the UK to Australia about 18 months ago and joined the fantastic Manningham transformation team just over a year ago now. 12 years of experience delivering complex digital transformation programs within the public sector, but particularly passionate about Dynamics as a technology. Very proud to share Manningham's CRM journey with you all today. So further ado, let me just talk a little bit about our approach. So how did we go about this? What lied at the heart of the approach was our project's objective, which was to provide our citizens with an enhanced council engagement experience. The approach was also very much focused around the 3 Ps, our people, our processes, and the platform of choice. The goal was to develop a system that is not only meaningful and becomes part of council users' day-to-day life, but also closely aligns with our strategic objectives and helps fulfill the promise we make to our customers, really. So the project commenced in 2018. was split into two phases. The first was to replace our legacy CRM with the new system. The second phase was geared towards enhancements and taking it to that next level. For the initial phase one of the project, Manningham preferred the Big Bang approach. And in terms of project stages, the first 5 or 6 months were dedicated to requirement gathering. The project team met every single service unit who used the legacy CRM system to understand their use case and identified process improvements along the way. We then kicked off our procurement process and went to market for the product that best fit our requirements. This is when Dynamics 365 was chosen as our platform of choice for a number of reasons, such as native integration with existing Microsoft products, its flexible architecture, favorable commercials, and moreover, Microsoft were investing heavily in Power Platform and the D365 at the time. The second part of procurement was all about finding the right partner for this journey. And like any other project, we had our fair share of curveballs come our way. Firstly, Dynamics were undergoing a journey of change themselves and moving away from classic to unified interface, which meant we needed to redesign midway through our build process. We also changed our implementation partner during this time, which is when we partnered with Fusion 5 sometime in 2019. We were also mindful that in order to increase our user adoption, a cultural change would be required, which is why at the offset, a robust change and comms plan was prepared. In that same vein, post-go live support and hypercare for our users was also a key consideration in our approach. And as I mentioned before, the phase 2 of the project was focused on what's next and what's beyond the first steps. And in case you're wondering, not everything went to plan, or rather not everything went per the original plan, because the biggest curveball was yet to come with when the pandemic hit us midway through the implementation. But more on that shortly. Brad, next slide, please. And one more. All right, so one team, one workplace, one coffee cart. That truly sums it up. The partnership with Fusion 5 is working brilliantly for a variety of reasons. They clearly understood Manningham's project objectives, some of the challenges we were facing at the time, and had the best functional and technical resources who worked with us from our offices, which in a true sense amplified that notion of one team. Our initial project team consisted of a PM, BA, change manager. We had a shared solution architect, business SMEs, Manningham's technical resources, plus the functional and technical consultants from more than one Microsoft partner, all on site, working towards the shared vision of delivering our CRM system. Early change management and engaging the business SMEs during that initiation stages of the project have been some of the biggest contributing factors towards the success of the project. As we moved from a waterfall phase 1 to hybrid agile phase 2 now, the SMEs have assumed the role of product owners and they continue delivering value and results. And of course, circumstances quickly changed as we transitioned to remote working. With the help of rich communication tools, we were still able to obviously keep the momentum going. And like Henry Ford said, if everyone's moving forwards together, then success takes care of itself. And together, the team were able to just do that. Paul, I guess good time to hand over to you, and perhaps you can share your thoughts on this.
Yeah, thanks, Priyanka, and welcome everyone to today's webinar. It's very much appreciated to have you all here. To give an introduction from my side, my name is Paul Griffin. I'm our General Manager for our Dynamics 365 customer engagement team here at Fusion 5. And Brad, I might just get you to move to the next slide for me. And just talk a little bit about what is the role of a partner in these projects and how we partner with Manningham City Council during this project from really through that latter stages getting Manningham live and then supporting them in our future components that we're leading them on today. So I split it out into 3 key areas, and the first one really being around leadership. So this is not just leadership on the Power Platform alone. This is about Fusion 5 bringing leadership around the investment Manningham have already made in the Microsoft ecosystem, and also around some of the technologies they have internally today. So we were able to bring that knowledge together with our team and help connect up some of the existing Microsoft technologies, whether that was M365 and hooking that into the Dynamics 365 platform, or whether it was looking at Power BI and bringing that into the solution for them to give them better insights and reporting across the data they had today. But moving beyond just the technology, we also worked hard partnering with Manningham, even with things like licensing, which is, it goes beyond just the technology, but it's how we can support and partner with Manningham on the ever-changing licensing at times with Microsoft as things, new solutions are coming in, or new conditions and rules are coming on the different licensing that may be available today. So it's our role as a partner to call things out early around that licensing and making sure that we have a plan together to be able to change and adapt to those new license models that might be released by Microsoft, but also looking at ways that they can get more efficiency or more cost-effective licensing out of the of what they're using today. So sometimes it might be identifying user roles that have changed as they've used the system, which means they might need a lower level license, and it's up to us to work and guide Manningham around that. Support's also a big part of our role as a partner, and leadership comes into play with our support models as well. Support's not just about break fix, and that's the relationship between Manningham and Fusion 5 today. We played a heavy part in that hypercare period post go live, but then also educating Manningham through our support team around the new features and components coming out from Microsoft in their twice-a-year release models, or cycles, I should say. So our role is to explain early and educate Manningham on what they look like and how they could potentially be rolled into the platform that they have today. So it just doesn't sit there, and that we continually evolve and enhance what their investment already is in the Microsoft technology. The other one is really an important one, and James touched on it before in his slides as well, is around this keep it simple, around this low code, no code mentality. And it's extremely important from us as a partner working in with our customers, and what we're doing with Manningham today is really about, it should be a config over customization mentality. The platform offers a lot today, and a lot of tools in there with things like Power Automate, Power Apps, and even the simplicity of configuring Dynamics 365 apps, that we don't need to go to code level. We don't need to bring developers in to achieve the outcomes that Manningham are looking for with this solution. And it's really up to us as that partner to be guiding on that, but not also just guiding in us performing those actions, but making sure that we're educating and training the power users at Manningham City Council of how they can do this too, how they can change business processes over time, or bring a new piece of functionality in with a Power App to do a new approval process. So it's really important that as a partner that we are instilling these behaviours and these controls into their solution today, so it doesn't become a dev heavy platform, because that's the last thing we want happening with these solutions. And then finally is the no surprises mentality, and you'll hear this one team mentality a lot from us. It is so important in projects. Not only just for Manningham, anyone who's looking at embarking on a project in the city councils out there today, you really need to get on board with this one team mentality. We don't want to be seen as a partner on the side, and you as a customer are just working independently. We need to be sitting there together. Yes, it made things easy in the pre-COVID world where we were on site in the same room, collaborating heavily together, talking all the time. But you know what, as soon as COVID struck, we were able to move into that remote world, and behaviours didn't change. We still were doing daily catch-ups using things like Team. We'll open with our communication and constantly collaborating together to ensure that we were getting the success required for this project. So it really is all about breaking down those walls and working together. Strong governance models is also crucial across this, that there's a no surprise, that we're transparent with each other, that steering committee meetings are set up, that all levels of the businesses understand where we're at, what's happening, is there risks, is there anything we need to unblock. So, and that's something as a partner that we bring to the table, and we talked a lot with Manningham about to make sure that we had that transparency at all levels in the project. So look, again, thanks for everyone's time today. I hope that helped give everyone a bit of an update and education about what the role is of a partner. So I'm going to hand over to Brad now, who's going to talk a little bit more about the solution that was rolled out for Manningham City Council.
Great, thanks, Paul. So my name's Brad Orders. I work for Fusion 5, and in this project, I was doing both a solution architect role, advisory role, and most importantly, data migration role and data quality advice. This has been a really interesting project because of the sheer volume and complexity of data involved. So here is an idea of the solution that we are working with. On the right-hand side, we've got the major moving parts. Naturally, the full solution is a lot more complex than this. But for people who are using things like EasyScan, Experian, Boomi, the old Trim, and P&R, just to give you an idea of the moving components that we were dealing with that central box in the center being the Power Platform based on Dynamics. In terms of the integrated solution, we were actually really lucky because Manningham had done a lot of work in mapping out exactly how their environment operates. So when we started looking at taking a legacy system and replacing it with Dynamics, we already knew the touch points that we would have to deal with. So most importantly, it was then saying, are those touch points able to be easily reconnected to a new system? One of the really critical things that we were aware of was go live. When we were going live, we were going to be pumping hundreds of thousands of records into the new system. If that triggered off processes in those components, we had to make sure that either A, the components could handle it, or B, we could have some way of turning things off temporarily and without any data being affected. So the next step then was, is the component able to handle the new system? Do we need to reconsider the future of some of the components? What do we work with now and consider later? So being able to do that mapping really quickly and really easily made life a lot easier starting our journey. So now we've got our system in place. Most importantly, a system's nothing without data. So then we get into the really interesting, for me, the interesting component, which is quality, and data migration. So when you've got an old system, often the older systems don't have terribly good data quality checks and balances. And one of the things that we wanted to do with this new system was to make sure that the data was being entered was validated on the way in, making sure that we were getting much more reliable information. That unfortunately leaves a gap because when we're trying to take data out of the old system into the new system, it's going to fail the data quality tests. So a lot of work was done to say, what happens when data fails? We can't throw the records out, they're still valid records. So we started looking at how things were failing, how we could either put them in with partial information or have some kind of temporary values available. Most importantly though, we started that discussion early. Duplicates were a massive issue at Manningham. The old system did not enforce duplicate detection. So when people have really high volume of calls and they're trying to process their work quickly, often it's easier to just retype in something rather than do a search and look for duplicates. To give you an idea, the addresses in the system were not duplicated at all, were not tested at all. Usually from memory, I think each address was duplicated about 19 times. And we found that contacts in the system had roughly 15% of them had duplicate information. Some of them went as high as in their 50s. So one contact would be in the system up to 50 times. So working with Manningham, we realized that we had a really rare opportunity to take care of those duplicates as we took information from the old system to the new system. So we spent a lot of time working on what are the duplicate detection rules, how do we enforce them in flight, and what would the new information look like in the new system. With all this preparation and all this training and reiteration and analysis, we were then ready for go live. So go live had a couple of components. One was the requests and cases that were currently open. We needed to make sure that if a worker is working on something on, say, Friday evening, and they come in on Monday morning, it needs to be available in the new system 100%, no questions. So that was our top priority, getting those active cases set up in the new system, allocated where they're supposed to, so when someone comes in, they can just continue their work. We also had a few years of older records available as well. We had to take that balanced approach of how far back do you go for day one? Because realistically, we want to have good testing and making sure that everything's ready and appropriate. So we took the first couple of years. So what about the older records? Well, the older records for the data migration team, which was a blended team of Fusion 5 and Manningham staff, every evening when everyone would finish their work, we would start up again and load older records. So by the time I think a week and a half had passed, all the old records from the legacy system had gone across to the new system. The most important thing, practice, practice, practice. Data migration was started early in the project, and that was critical. If we hadn't done all those practice runs, if we weren't working as an experienced single team, data migration and on go live would not have worked, simply. The effort and importance that was placed on it made this project able to go live. And for the technical people out there who are wondering, how did we do this? We used some pretty basic fundamental tools in interesting ways. The ETL program that we used fundamentally was SQL Server. It's repeatable. We took information into a database. We ran stored procedures over it. And at the end, we had clean data that could then be imported. And we used SSIS and Kingsway Soft as our connector. So really common skill sets, which was great because it meant that it was easier to find people who could help in the process. And most importantly, it was a repeatable process because no one ever has one run at data migration. Okay, let's hand over to talking about change.
Thanks, Brad. So change management. So in the beginning, the team followed all of the change management rules. We had dedicated change managers. We had executive drive and commitment. We had further commitment into the investment of it and into the culture surrounding it. We developed really clear business rules. And we were listening to our people, listening posts, dedicated email, webinars, you name it, we did it. We ran in-person training, which were probably more popular for their hot coffee and donuts than perhaps the CRM, but we had about 400 staff come through that. We had posters, USB branded devices, one-on-one meetings, you name it, we did it. We also created our super users, which has really put us in good stead throughout the whole of the project. And this group of people, so there's about 30 super users at Manningham, they're change agents in the business, basically. They have additional license access, and they're generally some of our more vocal officers when it comes to, I should say more enthusiastic officers, when it comes to the CRM project. And without them, I doubt we would have been as successful as we have been. Reflecting now a personal highlight on change management and our change management process was the strong alignment between myself, the project control group, which consisted of senior leaders across the organisation, with our project manager, Priyanka. So having someone leading the project that could interpret the needs of the business into the project was, I think, one of the most integral parts. And then next slide, thanks. And then we threw it all out the window. No, not quite. A couple of things happened. One of those, of course, being COVID, but we also had a failed launch as well. So we had to change our approach entirely. And then delayed go lives became the new normal for us at Manningham. We lost a lot of buy-in and trust for a moment there. And we were even asking ourselves, you know, do we still roll out this solution? You know, people were otherwise occupied with the with everything that COVID threw at us, and the idea of launching a new org-wide system just seemed a bit too much to ask of everyone there for a couple of months. However, there was a real natural moderation that happened in the business over that period of time, and it started from a very reactionary response of, you know, we can't possibly do this in an online environment, to a strong view that the status quo was unacceptable. And we're sick of waiting for this to happen. You know, we've been talking about this since 2017. Come on, Manningham. So we threw the change management rulebook out the window, and we got really practical, and we responded directly to feedback that we had from our users, and we moved everything online, and we tailored everything to their feedback, so it very much moved into a participatory process. Staff wanted to, you know, ask the CEO questions, and they wanted a one-on-one, so we set that up, and staff wanted, you know, training, individual training sessions, and we accommodated them. And Priyanka can talk a bit more about the practicalities of how we, and I hate to say it, pivoted.
Thanks, Sasha. Look, so just like Sasha said, you know, the pause and adapt was the key factor here. We were fully aware that our users, like every other Victorian, were already facing change fatigue and challenges associated with the rolling lockdowns, but we also very much at that point wanted to make this happen. The project crafted a comprehensive and at the same time very practical approach to ensure that we were able to go live in the remote setting. In-person training sessions were replaced with online Teams sessions. However, we made sure they were in smaller groups, so our users felt that it was a little bit more personal and tailored to them. They were more comfortable asking questions to our very engaging trainer. Manningham had just rolled out Microsoft Teams at the time, so our trainer would give a short lesson on key functions on Teams too, and prepared short e-learns on what users need to do before they join the session. Just little things like that you know, they would come a little bit prepared and feel comfortable with the digital platform. Like Sasha said, we had a team of 30 super users across the business that were identified and who undertook enhanced training as well, and who were able to support their team members during the hypercare and, you know, the post go live period as well. Plus our CEO session was very popular. We threw the floor open and lots of questions came through, things like that really. We also enabled our users with a plethora of information on our intranet page that they could consume at their own pace. Now they were, you know, quick reference guide or FAQs, step by step on how to go about certain things, because you no longer have the luxury of, you know, turning back and asking your colleague sitting on the office floor, how do we do this again? So all those, you know, virtual replacements were meticulously thought and planned and implemented. We obviously also had to move our in-person drop-in sessions that we were planning pre-COVID to just be on site in our civic office or our depot office, and just show the presence. You know, people could come and approach and ask questions, we could no longer do that. So again, we planned a virtual hypercare over Microsoft Teams for a period of 3 weeks, which Fusion 5, like Paul mentioned earlier, very much supported us with. So we created 3 breakout rooms, again, tailored to Manningham landmarks, and a live link that would open up from 8 to 5 p.m. where users can virtually drop in for a chat or a query on the new system. We had a lot of engagement via this channel, and at the end of it, 3rd week, there were no more questions, but people would just come and say, oh, I just wanted to see who's in Wonga Wonga Park breakout room and say hello. So they were very, very popular and useful at the same time. So all of these essentially culminated in us successfully going live in the remote setting, really. Next slide, Brad, please.
Okay, so we just celebrated our 1st birthday, and it really is cause for celebration. We've got 450 users across all of our service units, and we've got 30 of those fantastic super users. And we just crunched the numbers a bit before coming into this, and we've got around 64 cases, 64,000 cases that have been lodged in CRM. And 61,000 cases closed. And, you know, why is it always the cases closed are always less than the cases open? But anyway, we can break down our cases now by channel from web, email, social, mobile app, the list goes on. And what you can see there on my right-hand side is a snapshot of some of our really great data insights that we're now able to put together. So we've integrated our CRM with Power BI, and it's a set and forget report. It's quite in depth, so obviously that snapshot doesn't do it justice, but it covers all of our customer channels. And I share this with the executive monthly to give them an overview of our customers' experiences. And I think they've finally gotten used to me not submitting a report via Info Council and sharing a link instead. We've also got our councillors on board with Power BI reporting, where they have access to see all of their customer requests, which is live and available to them 24/7. A lot of them are accessing it on their mobile, which has been really great. And this is all helping us genuinely move to data-driven decision making and putting the customer at the heart of our decision making. And our customer experience ratings have begun to improve, and our people are more accountable than ever, thanks to the new CRM. I'm really excited about the proposed shift in customer experience as we move into the enhancement phase, which I'm sure that Priyanka will touch on next or in a bit.
Thanks, Sasha. And I think the last one was really, you know, the biggest benefit I saw from the project management perspective was the platform, you know, spoke for itself. So we commenced the next phase of our CRM project, and we're already able to accelerate our investment in Dynamics 365 as a platform by introducing further automation. And I guess, Brad, good time to move to the next slide. So during our phase 1 of the project, the team diligently kept a backlog, which consisted of, you know, everything from low priority issues to enhancements and improvement ideas we received from our users. As we transitioned to the second phase, we were determined to move away from waterfall to hybrid agile delivery model, and have been working in sprints then to deliver the refined backlog. And in order to obviously decide the value drivers, we created our prioritization matrix that looked at customer impact, or business impact, user experience, whether the feature is regulatory by Microsoft as part of the, you know, bi-yearly releases, or deprecated features coming through, and just scalability of the features as well that are being developed. So already on our 5th release, which is all very exciting. We're also currently working on our Dynamics 365 field service implementation. The objective here was to replace our current maintenance management system with field service, and we will initially roll this out to our infrastructure service and city project service unit, plus also our subcontractors via a power portal. This will be obviously very much scalable to other service units in the future, and we will be introducing mobility for our field staff as part of this project as well. So it's not just, about the field service app, but productivity tools as well with Office, Teams, and other Manningham specific systems. So we'll look at, replacing our silo maintenance management system with field service in the next 6 to 9 months, which is all very exciting. And yes, needless to say, great outcomes, we're looking forward to the great outcomes really that this will bring for our staff and also our customers. Besides that, this current phase will also look at leveraging some of the out-of-box knowledge management capabilities with reference to our customer requests. Plus, we're working on some further automation and looking at fully automating requests coming in from platforms such as Snaps and Solve, and also our own website. Pass on to Sasha for that last one.
Yeah, sure. And whilst Priyanka keeps us to a pretty rigorous schedule when it comes to our enhancements, what Microsoft Dynamics and this project in general has allowed us to do is to build our in-house capability. And so we're better positioned to be more agile and to have a continuous improvement focus on how we do business. And a couple of great examples that weren't scheduled, but is something that we're able to do now is our local businesses, much like many, are suffering due to the effects of COVID. And our business team and our procurement team wanted to further support them by encouraging us to use them first, so they are the first stop in our procurement process. So we have got all of our small businesses within Manningham within Microsoft now, and we go there first, and we encourage our local business to submit an application before going out to market. We've also been able to explore new and easier ways for that elusive single view of customer. And so working with Microsoft, we're trialling their Customer Insights app, and we've developed a proof of concept citizen on a page, which provides us with a single view of our customers. And we're going live with that in November in our contact centre. So stay tuned for those results. I can't wait to report back on improved customer experiences. So I think that's a wrap from us, and now it's time to hand back to Gareth, who will take us into a Q&A session.
Thanks, Steve, Sasha, and thanks to all our presenters there. So our first question here, I might give this one to Paul, if that's okay. So are configurations or enhancements after implementation being done by Fusion 5 or in-house by Manningham City Council?
Yeah, thanks for that, Gareth. In regards to that component or that configuration or enhancement, so it's a bit of both right now. So in some of the new projects that we're doing with the Manningham City Council team, they're being a part of our sprint cycles now. So they are being allocated elements to do some of the configuration for us now. So we're sort of transitioning them into those sprint cycles with us. And then there's some other elements that Fusion 5 are continuing to do. But it's definitely already happening and a real key focus for Manningham to look at how much they can take on. But it's sort of an easy process. We just don't want to put risk to any of the parts of the system. So we're making sure that we are doing it in a controlled way, but definitely they are playing a part now in our future sprint cycles of doing some config and enhancements.
Thanks, Paul. Second question, may we get the copy of the slide deck? I can field that one. I'll be sending out a recording of today's session afterwards via email, so keep an eye out for that there. Third question, I'll give this one to Brad maybe to start off with. So we would like to understand the difference between cases and secure cases from a technical point of view. How are they secured?
Yeah, that's a really good question and really critical at the heart of discussions with Manningham. There are some cases that are special. They involve perhaps high-profile people. They may involve complaints against Manningham staff. So the regular security that we have for most of our cases is no longer appropriate. We really need to set completely different rules. So the approach that we took from a technical point of view is we created a completely different record type or entity called a secure case note. That meant we can have a completely different security profile just for the secure versions of the cases. The challenge is, of course, you also want people to know that the case exists. You just don't want to share the details with them. So whenever a secure case is created, it creates like a really light version of a case and puts it in the system just so people know that the case exists and who it's assigned to. So if someone does need to follow up on a secure case and they do need to know the information within a secure case, at least they know which team it's allocated to, which person it's allocated to. They can pick up the phone and have a conversation with someone, whilst still making sure the system is respecting the fact that some cases need to be treated a lot more delicately.
Thanks heaps, Brad. And one, this might be for the group there. So did Manningham customer name data come from their core name, property and rating system? And what is the source of truth for the name customer data going forward?
I can take that one.
Thanks, Brad.
There was, in terms of the ultimate source of truth, they have two main players. One is the legacy system, which, as we've said, has a lot of duplicate issues, but it's still seen as truthful. But we were using P&R for a lot of validations. You know, naturally, if someone is a ratepayer, then that's a long way towards your golden record. So P&R was always used as the, use air quotes here, the validated version of data, particularly when it comes to address locations within Manningham. In terms of things like addresses, we actually had almost concentric circles where the best address was P&R and it was a Manningham address. And then it went wider to, well, did Experian say this is a valid address within Australia? So we would have that level of validation. Or if it's an overseas address, well, there's not too much we can do about validation there. But we also kept track of which addresses had which level of validation. So we could actually make judgment calls about the data, about how accurately we should be treating things like addresses in particular.
Thanks, and just one more quick one for you there, mate. Did you use an MDM to cleanse the data, or was the CRM able to handle this?
In terms of moving data in and out, we have two major players there. One is the legacy system. I was mentioning before we used SQL Server, working with Manningham staff on a lot of the business rules. Basically, because we knew it was a temporary system, to bring in an enterprise level ETL system was a bit of overkill. But we still had to have fundamentally an ETL system in SQL Server. So SQL Server was doing all that heavy lifting, transformation and cleansing and consolidating records from the legacy system. But on the other hand, you still have P&R, which has an active process going on, validating and updating. As P&R is updated, it gets pushed through and the Dynamics system is updated as well. There's actually a little system in the, getting techie for a moment. There's a record type that deals with integrations, and the integration is received. And then based on that integration and certain rules, it then goes and updates other records in the system, just so we don't have a direct connection between two systems.
Thanks, Brad. And Sasha, I think I've got a curly one for you here. So any tips or guidance in how to get endorsement and buy-in from the executive leadership team?
Firstly, if you don't have it, then from the get-go, I doubt that you're going to get it. So I think you really have to be honest from the beginning around that buy-in and around the business's commitment to investing in a CRM product. However, whilst we did have a lot of invested executives from the beginning, there were some that were sitting on the fence. And so some tools and tricks that have been used along the way to bring them on board is the good old what's in it for them. So the executive have really relished the reporting element that's come out of the new CRM, and that they can see a measurable uplift in customer experience. And so that has gone a long way into getting perhaps some of the people that were sitting on the fence on board. But I'd be really happy to have an open and honest conversation with whoever asked that question offline.
Thanks heaps for that, Sasha. So let me just have a look here. I might give this one over to Paul or Brad there. So is the current rollout only for the customer services module and function? How long did the end-to-end journey take from original implementation, partner procurement, commencement sign to go live? Maybe Brad or Paul, if you can step in for that one for me.
Yeah, I'll answer the first one, which is about which modules are we using. The business issue that we were addressing was very much customer service. It was customer service centric, and Manningham quite rightly identified that that was the most critical place to start. It's been only focused on customer service module to date, but that being said, as Sasha and Priyanka were commenting on before, field service is very much on the horizon, as in right now. And so field service is going to be rolled in initially. They also have some really interesting options around map-based information. And I would not be surprised if there's some interesting developments going on there in the short term. In terms of how long it took, it really depends how you measure it. Unfortunately, with COVID, I can't say that we had a clear run, and I can't say that it was a normal project, whatever a normal project is, because of the disjointed speed humps that the global pandemic throws at us, as well as the complexities across the project. It really does depend how you define it. I'm happy for Priyanka to step in or Sasha to step
Sure.
in, and yeah, depends how you yeah, I'll leave it with you,
Yes,
Priyanka.
I think that yeah, second part, so how long for the end-to-end from our original procurement signing, I would say it was roughly 2 years. And we changed partners between the time midway through the build. We had to change our design from classic to UI, plus, you know, as Brad said, pandemic. So we started in early 2018 and went live October 2020. So yeah, just over a couple of years there.
Thanks, guys. So, and maybe while I've got you there, Priyanka, so how has Manningham handled BAU operations support once deployed or after hypercare? Is it still in-house, or does Fusion 5 provide it? If in-house, how many FTE staff are supporting it as well? Let me know if you need me to repeat that there.
No, sure, no, all good. So BAU is split. We do have one FTE staff who supports it. They were involved with the project as well. And once we're done with this phase 2, they will transition into full-time supporting role. So there's one FTE. We do a lot of in-house supporting with our business data, and you know, fully empowered and capable in that sense. But also we have for our second line support, a partner plus agreement with Fusion 5 that we do, you know, set amount of prepaid hours a month just in case of major issues. So that's how we've structured it, and works well.
Thanks, Priyanka. And either for yourself or Sasha there, do you or plan to roll out a customer partner portal and build a citizen mobile app in Power Platform?
Nothing yet, but that is very much on the horizon. And Sasha, did you want to expand on that?
It's a great question. So yes, I would. Ultimately, I don't know whether I've got the projects buy-in yet, but I'll let you know. But yes, ultimately, we'd like to land with a portal where our customers can engage with our services when and where they would like. To get us there, we continue to need to refine the CRM platform, to refine our data management principles, and we're launching a new website at the end of the year, and then that will have the functionality there for us to connect the dots. So it's something that we're hoping to deliver either late next year or early the following.
Thanks for that. And I might just have to throw this one to the group there. So have you migrated from Tech One P&R request management to D365 cases for fulfillment processes and data capture as cases? Maybe you there, Brad.
Sorry, could you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, of course, mate. Have you migrated from Tech One P&R request management to D365 cases for fulfillment processes and data capture?
The P&R information that we're using is more about the classics, you know, people, organizations, and properties. That is the key information that we are bringing into Dynamics. So really, in terms of request management, we're not, any of that request information is not coming from P&R. It's coming from multiple of other sources. We're getting live chat and web forms filled in and phone calls and good old letters. But
I might be able to add to that.
Yeah, great.
Right, if you like. Yeah, so property and rating, which is our version of NAR, that manages our planning application process and our waste requests. The bulk of customer requests, I would say about 80%, are coming into Microsoft Dynamics at the moment, and we're looking at moving the waste requests over into CRM. So for instance, that's a good example. So it comes into the organisation, it's put into the CRM, and then because this is how we've always done it, it goes over to P&R for management. So that's a good one to bring back, but our planning applications will stay in that system and not come across to CRM. I hope that answers your question.
Thanks, Sasha. And quick one maybe for Brad there, was all functionality migrated to D365, or are there still some functions still within the legacy CRM?
The legacy system's turned off, so nothing remaining in the legacy system. It's available for reference for some key people, but realistically, we wanted people to look forward and to embrace the new possibilities. So having access to the legacy system kind of, you know, it's one foot in the past. But from my understanding, all functionalities come across.
Thanks, Brad. And have you implemented customer self-service via authenticated portal from Kevin there?
Not yet. As Sasha was hinting at before, it's something that's got a lot of interest at Manningham, but you know, we have to do things in a particular order, and there are a few other things in the queue first.
No problem. And did you need an IPAAS for the single view of your customers? Happy to throw that to the floor there.
Yeah, I think I can take that one, Gareth. So the single view of the customer is, it leverages a tool, part of the Dynamics family. It's called Customer Insights, which is Microsoft's edition of a customer data platform. So what it doesn't try and do is stitch and integrate these data silos together. It's more a data aggregator. So you plug in multiple data sources, it runs through data unification and provides that consolidated customer profile. So yeah, hopefully that answers that one.
Thanks heaps, James. So I'm just going to make this conscious of time. This will be our final question here, and I'll send over all questions answered in a Q&A report to attendees as well. Were there canned reports or dashboards from the legacy system that need to be recreated in the new system, and how was it handled?
Yeah, good question.
I might let Brad answer the technical component, but I'll give the CX component, which is we had to start from scratch. Yeah. And Brad, you can tell us how.
Yeah, there were quite a lot of reports in the old system. I can't recall of the number, but it was a really absurd number. And of course, over time, many of those reports are just no longer used. So we worked with our subject matter expert to work out which ones are actually still current and useful. And we tried to replicate the key ones without holding ourselves locked into the exact report. It's more about what question is that report trying to answer, and how do we answer that same question in the new system. So it is a real reimagining. And what it did do was opened the door to Power BI for us. That was where we realized that if we're going to bring this data to life and give Manningham such power over their own information, then Power BI was going to be a key player in that situation. So Power BI came in a little earlier than perhaps what we were planning, but it was really performing a key role in going from those old reports that were kind of roughly what we were looking for into something where we can give general information and actually give the users the ability to drill down themselves to get the information they need. So yeah, a bit of both.
Brilliant, thanks heaps. So 2 minutes over, not too bad for a this type of session. I think we can wrap up there. Before I do, I just really want to say a sincere thanks to our presenters from Manningham, Sasha and Priyanka for their time and their honesty about the implementation, and as well to Brad, Paul and James for their efforts in putting things together for this event. As I mentioned up top, I will share a copy of today's presentation with our attendees and those who couldn't make it. But if you do have any immediate questions or something from today's session we can clarify, please feel free to reach out directly to any of the Fusion 5 team you can see on your screen there. Thank you all for joining, and have a great rest of your day there, guys. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone.